If the art of war were nothing but art of avoiding race, glory would be the prey of mediocre minds. I have made all the calculations, fate will do the rest. If the art of war were nothing but art of avoiding race, glory would be the prey of mediocre minds. I have made all the calculations, fate will do the rest. How true is this about the man who gave life to this goat? Friends, Napoleon Bonaparte, who participated in the French Revolution and rose to eminence and became one of the most liberated emperor of France. Such was his influence that he humbled the great European powers of the time, Russia, Prussia, Austria, and Spain. His war strategies are studied at management institutions all over the world. His march of victory started in 1799 and continued till 1812 when his calculations did not work and he camped deep into cold Russian territory, went robbery, and he had to retreat in disgrace. Of this period around, Prussia and Russia joined hands with Russia and forced Napoleon to abdicate. He was exiled to Elba in 1814, wherefrom he escaped and reached France in March 1815. Two armies, the Prussians led by Field Marshal Gebhard von Brocher and an Anglo-allied force under Field Marshal the Duke of Wellington, were gathering in the Netherlands. Together they outnumbered the French. Napoleon's best chance of success was therefore to keep them apart and defeat each separately. Attempting to drive a wedge between his enemies, Napoleon crossed the river Somme around 15 June, entering what is now Belgium. The next day, the main body of his army defeated the Prussians at Ligny and drove them into retreat, with losses of over 20,000 men. French casualties were only half that number. The same day, Wellington beat off a separate French attack on the crossroads at Waterloo. But the Prussian defeat at Ligny meant he also had to retreat, risk being outflanked and overwhelmed. Pursued by Napoleon's main force, Wellington fell back towards the village of Waterloo. Unknown to the French, the Prussians, although defeated, were still in good shape. They retreated northwards towards Wellington's position and were able to keep in contact with him. The 48,000 strong Prussian army with experience and profession, a mix of veteran militia and reserve units. It moved swiftly to Waterloo. Within 48 hours of its defeat at Ligny, Wellington was now reassured. The French army had the greatest military commander in Napoleon Bonaparte. The emperor was loved by his loyal troops, demonized by his enemies, and feared and respected by all. Wellington drew up his army along the ridge of Mount Saint John, using tactics that he had perfected during the Peninsular War. He positioned most of his forces behind the ridge, so that they were out of sight of the enemy and sheltered from artillery fire. The rest of the army guarded three outposts in front of the ridge. To the west stood the chateau of Hougoumont, Which Wellington garrisoned with British guardsmen and German light infantry. In the center was the farm of Lawhide Saint, defended by more Germans and British firemen. At the east end of the ridge lay the hamlet Peplot, occupied by German duchy of Nazi troops. Napoleon's plan was simple. He would conduct a diversionary attack against hougoumont. Then, once Wellington had sent reinforcements there, the main attack against the bulk of the Anglo-Allied army would begin. As luck would have it, it poured heavily during the night, leaving the ground muddy and slippery. Also, the soldiers and horses could not have the much-needed rest. At 11:30 am, Napoleon launched his diversionary attack against Hougoumont. The French cleared the wood in front of the chateau but was shot down as they left its shelter. A small group did manage to break in via the north gate, which had been left open to facilitate his spy, but the defenders managed to shut the gates and kill them. The chateau remained in British hands all day. 2 hours later, they tried to cross the bridge, but they were stopped by British infantry and then counterattacked by British heavy cavalry. The cavalry routed the French infantry but carried their charge too far. They were then counterattacked by French cavalry and cut to pieces. By mid-afternoon, news of the Prussians' arrival forced Napoleon to form a defensive line on his right. The soggy ground hampered the French; they could not make an impression on the British squares, which held them despite suffering casualties from artillery fire. Meanwhile, the Prussians continued to arrive on Napoleon's right, forcing him to detach more troops to steady the situation. At about 6 p.m., the French captured La Haye Saint, severely weakening Wellington's position. Under withering fire, Wellington's center began to collapse. The French commander Marshal Ney called for reinforcements to push home his advantage, but Napoleon decided to send troops to recapture the village of Plaisenoit from the Prussians. This gave Wellington time to strengthen his position, and this was the wrong judgment on the part of the man who left nothing to chance. At about 7 p.m., in a last bid for victory, Napoleon released his finest troops, the Imperial Guard. They marched up to the ridge between Hougoumont and La Haye Saint, but chosen to attack where Wellington was strongest. Although the British defence was very weak, the weather-beaten and exhausted Imperial Guard halted, wavered, and finally broke. The defeat sent the rest of the French into panic and eventually retreat. Napoleon lost nearly 40,000 men killed, 1 leader captured. The Allies suffered 22,000 casualties. Napoleon was defeated. He spoke of fighting on, but was forced to abdicate when the Allies entered Paris on 7 July. He spent the rest of his life in exile on the island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic. The Battle of Waterloo was a terrible battle. It ended an era of bloody military campaigns, but it also brought an era of peace and prosperity.